What's going on, everybody? It is the Tom Rowland Podcast, brought to you by brite. They are the makers of fine products to take care of your boat, your RV, even your home, even your deck, outdoor things. I love the Salt Off product for my boat and also the deck cleaner. Man, that stuff works so well. Check out brite for your cleaning products to take care of your great investment. Many weeks ago, we did an Ask Me Anything podcast and people submitted questions. Some of the questions were, what are a few of your favorite podcasts? So we've been going back through and I've selected a few of the ones that were the most meaningful, the most impactful. The one that I selected for today is none other than Michael Waddell. You might also know him as the Bone Collector, one of the top names ever in hunting. If you're a deer hunter, a turkey hunter, you know Michael Waddell, you know the Bone Collector. I certainly did. He made a fantastic TV show. And not only that, he was a super likable character. For those reasons, he experienced a lot of success. Michael Waddell, the Bone Collector, that is a name synonymous with hunting. Just as I thought, even though he does so much more hunting than I do, and I do so much more fishing than he does, we're real similar in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, I felt like we became fast friends. And I really liked Michael Waddell because I liked his story. It's a story about hard work. It's a story about dedication and sticking to it when so many things look like you shouldn't. So many factors so many things are pointing to, you should just quit. Like, you're never going to make it. I experienced that. Michael Waddell experienced that. So many of the other guests that we've had on the podcast that have eventually made it to whatever they're doing did experience that moment of, man, I should just quit. But they don't. And those moments about when they think they should quit, but they don't, those are some of the most interesting to me. Why did you make that choice? What was it that made you not only quit, but double down? All right, here is Michael Waddell, the Bone Collector. Here we go.
There's a man or woman listening or watching this podcast, and you've always wanted to do something. Go for it, but go for it with everything in you and have the confidence that you can be great in it. Because the reason I say that, I started realizing that a lot of my friends and even my family, they are just living this slow, conservative, safe route to death. And that's pretty bold of me to say that, but they're not taking any chances. And I have learned that you do fail a lot, but if you keep getting back up and swinging, you succeed. And so with this, in America, there's so many ways. I mean, there's got to be a Jay-Z. There's got to be a Beyonce. Yeah. There's got to be a Tom Rowland. There's got to be a Michael Jordan. There's got to be a Chuck Adams. There's got to be a Dale Earnhardt. Who in some of these areas that we have a chance to play in could think that there would be a livelihood? I'm not saying that's easy, but it's not wrong for Americans or anybody or human being to go after being into this 10% or 20%. And I think what happens is most of the people who love us the most, I catch myself as a parent now doing it, we try to push into this safe zone of this 80, 90% of making a livelihood, working at a high rise or being in the agency rather than to push to own the agency. And so in a deep way, I think that's the problem with America. Now we get to the point where people don't even want to work. They just want to sit at home and just get something given to them. And so, I think the American dream's still alive, but it's only alive if you dream and you have the balls. I know that I guess I can say it on this podcast to just go get after it. Yeah. To go get after it. And if you fail, you can still jump back into that 80 percentile. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Waddell with the TV show Bone Collector. Love to hunt and fish and do about anything outdoors. And I'm now on the Tom Rowland Podcast.
Michael Waddell, the man from Booger Bottom, right here on the Tom Rowland Podcast. Man, I'm excited to have you, man. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, Tom, glad to be on here, man. Been excited to chat with you, man. I know y'all been wide open and have a lot of exciting things. And plus, we never had a chance to sit down and really chat a lot. I mean, I've seen you around some of the shows, and obviously you've been a long time in TV, and mostly wetting them hooks while I'm over there hunting. But yeah, I know we need to combine our adventures, and then we'd have the perfect situation.
I know we could go. Well, the problem is that you have a lot of the things that we like to do happen at the same time. Turkey hunting and tarpon fishing happen right at the same time, but we can work that out.
Exactly. And I've always heard, and obviously I know the addiction of turkey, but I've always heard that tarpon fishing is the exact same type of addiction. So yeah, I would probably be a complete physical and emotional wreck if I got into tarpon fishing, because I wouldn't know which way to go. I'd be like, had to cut myself in half.
Well, I know that's all you need is something else pulling on you. I'm sure that, you're a busy guy, man. You've got so much going on, and over the years you've been able to keep it going on and expand it and move on. Now you got the podcast going on, and it's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about how you have been able to balance like this career that you've created, your own personal hunting, because I'm sure that hasn't stopped, and then you're a family man. And then you're expanding these businesses and you're doing more and more, and it just seems like, even to somebody like me that's got a lot of things going on, I look at somebody like you, I'm like, man, that's a trick. There is a trick to balance and keep all of that thriving and not let one of those things, like your family life or this business over here. How have you done that?
Well, it's funny, Tom, and you're right. I think a lot of our life and career has a lot of parallels. Like I said, me more over in the hunting side, where you and your fishing, and obviously, you've been a guide for many years. And then now, obviously, when you step over into kind of this business adventure, which that was something I wasn't ready for, but I would best say, the way to summarize it is I've had a lot of success on all of it, but I've also had a lot of failures on all of it. And somewhere in the middle has been this balance of learning from, things that work and things that don't work. And it has, as you know, this lifestyle is such a blessing. I wake up and I pinch myself, honestly, to be able to sit down and chat with you. I've met and had a chance to hang out with so many people I respect across the country, not just in our area as far as outdoors hunting and fishing, but in every walk of life, from athletes to actors to actresses to singers, entertainers. And when you share this common bond of hunting and fishing, it kind of, you become like this brother or sister. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that it really breaks down all the politics and barriers of financial situations, from politics, anything. And so, but with that, to have a chance to take off and all of a sudden become representing of that, I think early in my career, it was a little different, because I think I was more greedy as to just the adventure and the hunt and trying to fill a tag. And so it was easy to neglect family and to just be blindsided. It's like, man, I'm getting to do this. And so I was almost kind of game hoggish, if that's the word. I was just so excited. I was young. I was ready to be on the road, where now I've learned to say no to some things that I still would love to go, because, I do have a T-ball, a son in T-ball. Mm-hmm. And this was the first year, Tom, speaking of that balance, this was the first year. I've got 5 kids, and this year was the first year I've ever was a coach. Yeah. This past spring, I had a chance to coach my son in T-ball. And of course, if you coach T-ball, you don't have to coach. It's more just a kind of a babysit and hug them and high five. But dude, it was kind of emotional, because all my other kids came and watched Waylon, our youngest. He's 4, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. But I did miss out on a lot of what I would have been turkey hunting or running around, and maybe it would have been, getting a chance to catch a tarpon or something. And so it has been extremely hard, but extremely fun and life learning to figure out what is the best route. And from business, I never woke up years ago and said, man, I'm going to be a businessman. Matter of fact, I still struggle with the business aspect. I feel excited about getting into stuff creatively, which is one thing that brought you and I together, because I love what you guys doing at Waypoint, and it's a cool creative masterpiece, if you ask me, to touch a whole nother, the same audience, but starting to make it easier. But right, we'll talk about that later. But overall, Tom, it's been fun, and I've learned, and I'm still learning, and it is a balance, because for me, I truly, legitimately absolutely love this outdoor lifestyle. So you got my number one hobby. And then I ended up having a chance to represent it and make a living at it. So that's good. I've always thought if you're purpose driven and you enjoy and have passion, and then you can learn to become great at something. Like for me, I'm not saying I'm the best, but I did become pretty good at hunting and shooting a bow and chasing turkeys like you did on trying to figure out how to catch a fish where somebody else maybe not could. So, but I also, it was a hobby and I'm still learning every day. So I just want to keep getting more of it. I want to go all the time. I don't consider going turkey hunting, getting up and hunting at daylight and then, 8:30, 9 o'clock, eat breakfast. I'm so freaking obsessed with it that all of a sudden it's 3 o'clock and I hadn't stopped and those around me are starving. And I'm sure you've been that way, in your passion to catch a fish, and so for me, it's just been insane to figure out a way to make a living out of it. But there is that hard balance of figuring out, like, I really want to do this. There is a financial reward to do this. Plus there's an emotional reward because it becomes something I get to do again that I love. However, my kids are having a chance to receive AB honor roll. Right. I need to be there. So I've learned to balance that better. And to be honest with you, I probably failed more on the family side of it than I did on the entertainment side of doing the TV stuff, because I've learned better to know when to say no. Now obviously a little more gray in the beard and you start appreciating things different. And, and you realize your kids, they don't care what your ratings are. They want to see you around. They want you at that ball practice. They want to go camping on a Friday night. They want to do those things. And so I've learned a lot. And I don't know. I feel like right now I've never been more excited to be where I'm at, because I feel very convicted about all things outdoors to promote it. We've seen in this COVID nightmare, the last really, I think, completely over is, for us, the outdoors, what it's meant, and to be honest, not to be not empathetic to those who did really get hit hard when it comes to emotional and physical part of being kind of cooped up. For people like you and I, we just hit the water, right. We hit the woods.
Social distance. We've been social distancing for a long time. Like, you don't get too close. I don't even want you over here. I don't want to see anybody.
All those grouper fillets come in handy last spring, It's like, wow. And so, if we don't have no chicken, well, we just kill one of ours. We got them here on the farm. You get an extra tomato. You don't give us away. Well, we still gave away a ton, but we had a garden. It kind of put us back into what we wanted to do. But I know that was a long answer to that question, but overall, I think I'm still learning, but that has been the trick to an outdoor career. Because I think a lot of people don't realize it, but it's very similar to a professional athlete, to where you definitely have to balance, and it becomes tough because it takes a toll on your family, because 90% of what you do that's on television and representing, and when you're handling business, typically you're out of town, you're going places, you're going to sales meetings, you're going to marketing meetings, you're out of town, and doing a hunting show, and you're gone 7 to 10 days to get one episode. And so it becomes pretty stressful as far as the time. Certainly not looking for sympathy, because our work is a lot of fun. And there's no stress in the work. The only stress is like, man, I wish I was home. My wife's battery is dead. What do I do? You're having to call a friend. You're having to call your father to fix something that typically as a man you would be there to have.
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the things that I've wrestled with the most. I guess my kids are a little older than yours. Probably I've got a 23, a 21, and a 17. And
wow, cool age.
I did get to do exactly what you're doing right now, and back off a little bit to be able to coach. I was a hockey coach and a wrestling. I didn't know anything about hockey, but they needed a parent that could do something. So I learned how to skate and went out there and we're roller hockey in Key West. You wouldn't think that would be something that they have in Key West, but they do. And I could skate. I always said I could skate just good enough to really hurt myself badly, because I could get going pretty fast and I could even go a little bit backwards. But man, I was teetering on the edge of a wipeout all the time. But then that wrestling coach and football coaching and soccer coaching and stuff like that, just to take that little bit of time away from the fishing and the business and everything else and spend that with the kids, it was really rewarding. And it actually turned out to be something that, it didn't feel like, man, I'd really like to be out there. It was like, no, this is exactly where I want to be. I want to be doing exactly this. And that's an interesting feeling. Like when you kind of feel like maybe the turkey woods are pulling you in that direction, but you're like, this is where I need to be. I killed enough turkeys. I've done, enough of this kind of stuff. And right now this is where I need to be. And that's a cool place to be. It's nice to see you taking time like that, because I mean, you got so much going on, man. Like it's just kind of cool. One of the things that I was looking at, I would listen to a couple of your podcasts, and I've been kind of going back over stuff, and I've watched you from a long time. I mean, I don't know how long you've been on TV, but as long as I can remember, I've been watching you on TV, and it's a cool story. And I don't want to go too far into your story because you told it so many different times, but you're basically discovered at a turkey calling championship. And then that leads to all this other stuff. You know, on your bio, it says, you won this turkey calling championship. You met Bill Jordan, and then you're next thing you know, you're running cameras for all these different shows, and you're doing all this stuff. So what that led me to kind of ask, because we talk about like how somebody can be a fishing guide, how somebody can be a hunting guide. And I talked to icons like a Bill Dance or a Roland Martin or somebody like that about their story and how they kind of came up and the challenges they had and stuff like that. And I kind of wanted to ask you about that, because one of the things that you talk about a lot is you're just a country kid from Booger Bottom. Like, I know that's not what you are. I mean, you're a lot more than that, but I mean, it says right on your website, the man from Booger Bottom. But there had to be a day where you were the kid from Booger Bottom that hadn't seen a lot, and now you're going out and you're a star, dude. You are the biggest star in the hunting industry, in my opinion. And I went to some of those shows where there was a line out the door to see you, and I'm just like, how was that for a kid from Booger Bottom to all of a sudden have that? And I don't know when in your career it exploded like that. But what was that like for you? Did you ever struggle with that?
I did in some areas. I did. I think overall the word is humbled. When things really took off, Tom, how you hear somebody, sometimes people say, oh man, that dude went and got famous and become a jerk, and I'm like, for me, I think it was 100% the exact opposite. I was so humbled by it. And as you talk about Booger Bottom, like, it's funny because that is, a lot of times people see that. It's like, oh man, that's just marketing. However, that is where I came from. But at this point, obviously my family and my dad and a lot of my family still live in Booger Bottom. And of course, that's where I learned to hunt and fish. That's where I learned about life. Obviously, it's where you go parking in high school and you first trying to figure out if you got 4-wheel drive on a truck. That's where you go find a 6-pack of Natty Lights or a bottle of Boone's Farm wine. Back in the day, it was so many things. It was where you heard a turkey gobble from the side of the road, or a little creek that you went fishing in, and a little pond that you would slip in to go try to catch a bass or a mess of bluegill. And so with that, for me, I think why Booger Bottom and the country boy thing means so much to me. It always, no matter where I'm at, it reminds me of where I'm at, because I think one of the most important things about when you get into, if you want to call it showbiz, I mean, I don't consider outdoor hunting and fishing showbiz, but when you have people this lined up that do want to meet you, that do want to shake your hand, possibly get you to sign a hat or show you a fish or a deer or a turkey or an elk, or show you trail cam pictures, man, that is an ultimate, you have to show ultimate respect to that, because I too had heroes. And I remember being very nervous of meeting some of these people, because I didn't know if they were going to be what I expected them to be, if they were going to be, a jerk. And so what happened with me, Tom, I think deep down, I'm pretty philosophical. I didn't know that until I've gotten a little older. But even then, I noticed that the hunting industry and even the fishing industry was kind of odd, to where when the cameras are off, I always saw a different side of people that I seemed to like more. And then at times I saw sides of people that I liked a lot less. And so as a kid, and I got a chance to be thrown into this literally at 17, 18 years of age, guiding and taking people hunting and going to these big, promotions with Bill Jordan back in the day and learning about business and stuff. I remember even being more proud of kind of where I come from. And I quickly become very confident about my ability, at least on the hunting and, fishing side of things. Cause I realized that, wow, my dad and where I grew up, we are legit. We understand, every tree out there. We understand firewood. We understand how to grow the best tomatoes. We understand how to treat turkeys at a pretty high level. We understand, how to kind of figure out how to get on a deer for food and maybe try to kill a big mature Georgia, Southern buck. And so I started realizing that I started gaining my confidence in my ability as a hunter, but I hadn't yet crossed that barrier of being proud of being the guy that mispronounced words, being a guy that was a solid D student that, never has figured out what chemistry is and calculus. And I struggled, and I realized that I wasn't a good student. I realized that I hadn't been to any colleges except for a freaking party. And I had never been to school. So I was very kind of like, intimidated around these big meetings. And I felt like the dumb redneck. So somewhere in that time, like I said, I think what the question you ask is very, very solid and philosophical in the fact that for me, I was very insecure at first about the booger bottom, about being the dumb redneck. And so I think what I did is I just kind of started realizing and gaining more confidence that I was decently smart when it come to gut instinct. I didn't know what EBITDA was in business. I didn't know, what margins meant. And I didn't understand that you could sell $2 million worth of product and still lose $1 million. I didn't understand all these things. I didn't understand that when you walked into a meeting at Walmart, you might only have 10 minutes to present for your partners. I was just kind of this ultimate bullshitter of high-fiving and ready to talk about family, friends, and where a turkey was gobbling. So I was at first kind of quiet and reserved and didn't want to open my mouth because I'd have probably said something dumb, in my opinion. When everybody else was saying, what a nice harvest, I was saying, man, I just gave him a parking ticket. And he fell over there dead. He's on the road to glory. Well, I wasn't trying to come up with these things. These are just the way I acted with my best friends and my buddies and my cousins as we hunted. And so I started realizing that on these shows and these TV shows and even these seminars, that really all I had to do was be myself, because myself was 98% of the audience. So I think for me, it made me more humble to realize that it's not even me. This is our world. This is these people. These are my brothers. These are my sisters. And so when I started finally coming to my heart and soul that it wasn't a Michael Waddell thing, that this was a cultural thing, then I think I ultimately got very proud, and I become very careful, but I also become very quick to fight for the culture that meant so much to you and I. So I think that's the synopsis of me and the kid from Booger Bottom. And you're right. I think I'm now proudly can be the dumb redneck in the room, but in reality, I can take in a lot more at these meetings and different places than people realize. But I can sit back and I can speak, and based on the situation, I can kind of let people kind of show their cards, and then my card's already been shown because everything about my life is pretty much documented. Yeah. And so it becomes I feel like an asset to myself, but it also becomes an asset to those men and women that talk and act like you and I, that have families but at the same time we understand, the fishing and hunting aspect, and it becomes I don't know. It made me very proud. I think it humbled me and made me very proud of where I came from. And that's why I still always remind myself that I'm from Booger Bottom. Yeah. And last but not least, it reminds me every day of the American dream. If I can make a solid living, inevitably, talking about hunting and fishing, talking about, the way we feel about culture and the way we feel about, in some cases, politics, which I don't really like politics, but it reminds me, if I can do that and not have a college education, barely graduate high school, grew up playing sports, baseball, football, chasing girls, the all-American story that typically should have turned into me, working construction or hanging sheetrock, which I'd have been very proud to do. But if I can turn something that's a passion that I become decent at and make it a solid livelihood, then that's the true American dream. And you don't hear about that in Turkmenistan. You don't hear about that even in really France at a high level. And so it makes me proud of America. It makes me proud. And in one way, it also makes me a little less, sympathize with these people who cry victim, because I know that everybody's great at something. You just got to work hard. And again, getting back to this family thing, you do sacrifice a lot in those early years because you are just completely focused. You don't have all this worried about what's going on Saturday and Sunday. Every day is just another day to move the needle for something or somebody. And then inevitably, if you're doing the right thing for somebody else in an industry, it usually circles back around to you. And so that's my story of really just kind of how I feel about how I got started. Well, it's just been an extremely good blessing.
It is an American dream. I mean, really, you're just going to these turkey calling championships, and I saw where your dad was taking you around to all these different ones, and then there is this discovery, almost like in music, like somebody saw you and says, that kid's got something right there, and let's see what we can do with him. But there's something on your side that you have to do where these opportunities present themselves to you. And I mean, like it's like, you hear about this with music or your story or whatever, and people are like, he just met the right person at the right time. But it's more than that, because you have to actually jump on these opportunities. Hey, you want to run camera for so-and-so? Yes. I don't know anything about running camera. I don't know what your situation was with that, but what I know is that it's way more than luck, and it's way more than just being in the right place at the right time. There might be that one spark of that, but then you've got to take advantage of all these opportunities, and then you have to create new opportunities. And did you ever have some doubts about that? Like, man, they're asking me to go on a sheep hunt. I don't never been out there. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going.
Yeah. I mean, I did. I think most of the hunting stuff, I had pretty solid security, and feeling like I could figure out a way to find success. Like, growing up in Georgia, chasing these old hard-headed turkeys, you growing up in Tennessee right there. And obviously most of our turkeys down south, all of them have judged the great American redneck yelp off, before April 30th, So obviously I felt like, some of the things matched up to what I felt comfortable hunting. But yeah, I was very intimidated. I think the biggest thing I was intimidated, Tom, was not as much the ability, say, to go on a sheep hunt, or maybe what it'd be like to go to Africa and hunt a Cape buffalo with a bow. I felt pretty confident. I think it gets back to the early stage. I was insecure about who I was. I caught myself wanting to clean up and take away, whether it's a Southern accent or the slang words or acting like this crazy old goofy man child that I really was. I caught myself, and you was part of that too, on those early ESPN, and then obviously at the time when I started working at Realtree, we were on TNN, and TNN, people forget that was a huge network.
That was the biggest, dude.
Yeah.
That was the biggest ever. That was my introduction to television. I was on Shaw Grigsby's show. He was on, He had one more cast on TNN, and that was the first television show I was ever on. And man, I mean, when I say that the phone didn't stop ringing for months, it didn't. I mean, it was amazing. There were millions of people watching. And
one episode. Like I said,
it doesn't exist today.
It's all about, a cumulative watch now. But back then, I remember Realtree Outdoors and Shaw's show. I think Hank Parker had some stuff. Moss Elk had Hunting the Country. Mark Sosi, I think. He was more on ESPN. But anyway, I remember, like, after a NASCAR race, Realtree Outdoors would come on, and we would have millions. I mean, like, I remember 5 or 6 million people be watching one episode at once. And that was huge in the outdoor space. And so I remember thinking and having this, top of mind that, oh my God, first of all, I'm editing and producing. Now, go back to that. I didn't know anything about TV. I was I think I remember the AB roll editor, the editing and having these big beta cams. And I remember thinking, like, man,
you wouldn't hold that thing open you wouldn't hold a door open with that thing today. It cost $100,000.
I know you're in the fitness, Tom. Look, if we were all camera guys back in, between, let's say 88
Yeah.
in 2000, we were all in shape.
Yeah.
If we were running a camera,
was a 60-pound camera on your shoulder.
Oh, dude. I mean, you was freaking real.
Yes.
And then you had those big Benton or cycler sticks, those things weighed 40 pounds each, I bet. And then those big bricks. So anyway, with that said, I didn't know how to run all this stuff. And then to find out that this camera setup cost as much or more than my house.
Yes.
And so, and then I'm editing this stuff. So I think I was at that beginning part of that, my insecurity came from, wait a minute, man, I would like to spin it to more booger bottom. You know what I mean? I wanted to spin it to where, not spin it, but I felt like that, the outdoor space was missing some of the biggest entertaining characters. Man, like I said, you grew up guiding all these fishermen, and then you meet a lot of these guides or these just people that live in the woods or live on the water. And dude, they are characters. And the people that come hunting are characters. They're on vacation. They're crazy guys from the Northeast, New York, Pennsylvania, crazy old Southern rednecks from South Alabama. And so you sit around them guys and you never quit laughing. There's jokes out the wazoo. And so I thought, man, this is kind of what the industry is trying to cover up. And I'm thinking, I want to expose it because it was, to me, it was Duck Dynasty before Duck Dynasty.
Right.
And so anyway, I think I was insecure about that. But once I found that, wait a minute, we're missing the best elements of it. I think that's where it came clean for me, and I was real insecure. I remember the first seminar I did, like, man, what do I talk about? I mean, or how do I talk? I remember writing everything down on this paper, trying to bullet point out how to give this seminar. And I remember completely just trying to go off this outline, and I was failing so bad, Tom. I remember thinking, okay, I just got to go back to bullshitter's ball roll, just having fun and bull crapping my way through it and cutting a few jokes. And then quickly people started laughing. And, and I remember early on saying, people asked me a question about, what's this, and what's the best brace height on the bow, and what's the mechanics of this? And like, man, I don't have a clue. And they're looking at me like I'm supposed to be this professional. And I'm like, man, I don't know. And I remember immediately those type things are where I started grabbing my security. But I was insecure, not as much to hunt. I was insecure, I think, representing what I considered this hunting space.
Yeah.
And then I started realizing that, man, I can do this. It's not because it's anything special in me. It's because I am the space, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it worked, man. It's funny because one of the things that I've talked about a number of times is that that if you stay with something long enough, the thing that you think is your biggest weakness will turn out to be your greatest strength. And like your story is very similar to that. Like you're getting 100%. In, you're thinking, oh man, I'm just this kid from Booger Bottom. I don't know. But then once you get enough experience to realize all the things that you just told me, like that's your greatest strength, that somebody that's not from there, somebody that doesn't have that they would always be perceived as fake. They would always be perceived as a poser or whatever, that's not who that person really is. And that turns out to be the greatest strength that you had. Of course, you got lots of other strengths. I mean, you played down like, you barely graduated high school, but man, I mean, you're just, even in just what you're saying, like you jumped at the chance to edit. You know how to edit, but somebody gave you the opportunity, and that's what I'm getting at is like this road to success. Maybe there's some opportunities there, but you actually have to take advantage of those opportunities and get yourself in a position to where you're very uncomfortable. I'm sure. I know I did.
Yes.
Of somebody gives you a chance and you're like, man, but I don't know anything. And it would have been real easy just to say, nah, man, I'm gonna be hunting this Saturday. I don't think I can help you edit that show. I'm gonna be out here. And that opportunity goes and somebody else takes it and takes off.
Somebody will step up to the plate. And Tom, what you're saying is so spot on, because you're exactly right. And one reason I was excited to come on your podcast, because we do have a similar story. And coming from the South, obviously you getting out West and starting to guide and even guiding. Like my first job at Realtree was guiding. People don't realize, everybody said, man, be awesome, be an outfitter, be a guide or be a fishing guide. The ultimate responsibility of that, especially if you're competitive, is man, it will completely wash you mentally. You'll be so exhausted before you even physically get to it, because you got to think about everything. And if you take pride in something, which I certainly do, I know you do, you got to think about, okay, man, you feel like you're confident. You feel like you can catch them. You feel like you can kill them or whatever it is. And all of a sudden you got somebody pays you money and says, put me on them.
Right.
They sit back, crack open a Gatorade. Now you got to think about safety. Where's, man, am I going to be able to even get bait fish to freaking go fishing? Where they're going to be. And then all of a sudden is my equipment running right? Can I get out here? Does everybody have their license? Man, my wife, we did renew my guide license. I mean, so all these things, now you still got to have success. And guess what? You might be on a hot spot and then you get out there, the guys are catching them. They're missing every other fish or setting the hook wrong. Man. And then they're like, well, put me on some more. And like, no, that was the pocket.
That was it.
You were supposed to be, that was your half a day, homie. That's over. And so that part of it alone, you can intimidate yourself out of even starting. And I will say, and if there's anybody that listens to this, man, you got to put your pride and your ego into your heart and soul, because a lot of times on the outside, we come across like, oh man, I could catch him, I could kill him. But then you give him the chance. Are you given the chance to walk in and people say, well, go tell your story, stand up in front of this crowd and tell your story, how you feel about outdoors. And they're like, no, man, I don't want none of that. Well, they'll get around the cooler and complain and holler and spit and talk about this. They'll get on social media and tell you everything that they know about public hunting, or, that must be easy catching them bass in that pond. Go here and catch. Well, they won't do nothing if they're given the chance. Give them the opportunity. A lot of times they lock up and freeze up because ultimately people are afraid of failure. And so for me, failure has always been the biggest driver for me, because I don't want to fail. If somebody wants me to take them turkey hunting, I don't consider it turkey hunt. I consider my job is make sure this guy kills a turkey, or at least an opportunity. Because if I don't get that, I feel like I fail. Inevitably, that's not the case. It is about the day and the fun and the adventure and getting on a turkey.
I mean, like you and me and a lot of people that make a living at this, they realize that this isn't a nature tour. Like a lot of people just take you on a nature tour. Yeah, we're going hunting. If you kill something, that's going to be a plus. No, you're expecting to kill something. You're expecting to catch something. You're expecting anybody can go out there and catch them themselves. Anybody can go out there and kill the turkey himself. But it's when you got somebody that can barely walk and you have to now think about, man, if it was me, I'd just go right over here. But we can't do that today. So how are we going to do this? And there's this whole creative thinking, and then you take guiding into being like an art form. Like it really does become that way. Like you become so creative, and then you become so much better at the activity, whether that's turkey hunting, elk hunting, tarpon fishing, bone fishing, whatever it is. Now you have somebody that has limited skill compared to you. Maybe they're okay, but let's say you can cast 100 feet with a fly rod, and this guy gets on your boat and he can cast 30. Yeah. Well, you still gotta get him a fish. And now it's like, I see the same thing, and I'm sure you do too, as it comes to filming these things, because you're like, okay, it's gonna be great. I've got these turkeys wired, and the guy says, well, we can't shoot into the sun. They're going to come this way? No, they can't come this way. It's going to be terrible. I won't even be able to frame the shot right. You're like, buddy, what do you, I mean, we've had them say that we've had our camera people say that, and we're like, so you want me to pole around this school of fish and try to catch one the other way? Like this usually lasts like 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Like this lasts 2 seconds, and now I have to, okay, I guess we're going to try to do that. And somehow it works. Sometimes. And
you almost learn from it. Like, we'll never do this. And you're like, wait a minute, I've been overthinking this. Yeah, I've done it a million times in the wildlife stuff. God.
I know, but you learn so much, and it makes you so much better. It's fun.
It does. I do think it does. I mean, it does, because you're putting these challenges. And matter of fact, Tom, and I want to, get your take on this, but I tell you something else I learned too about the outdoor space and doing what I've done. Like I said, I didn't go to college. And I remember my dad was one of the only people that was 100% far when I was 17, 18. Like, all right, you ain't going to school. Well, if you're going to be helping out Bill Jordan guiding, well, ride that out and get after it. That's a pretty cool opportunity. But my dad was a very big avid outdoorsman, and he loved Realtree and the Mossy Oak. And he was a fan of a lot of these companies I was having a chance to work with early on. But overall, I would say my family, which is all country as a chicken coop, they was discouraging of it. They were like, well, Michael, you can't make a living hunting. This is ridiculous. You done gone crazy. Man, you need, I had went to heating and air school. So I had gotten a degree in air conditioning technology, and I just gotten a job as well, just out of high school, being a serviceman, like a serviceman for heating and air, installing air conditioners.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize that. Well, my grandmom and my uncle were devastated. Like, you got a van, you got a suit with your name on it. I know, but I'm not fulfilled. I'm completely fine. I'll do this the rest of my life, but I'm also 17, 18, 19 years of age. I think I should try this. I'm sitting here trying to talk adults who love me into pushing them to realize that I think I should try this opportunity. No different than the kid who wants to go to Nashville to be a singer,
right?
Or the kid like you that went from Chattanooga said, I think I'm gonna start guiding fish out west. You ain't fished those rivers out west. Never. Outside of just for hobby. Yeah,
never.
But like now I'm gonna go out here and start guiding. Right. Okay. And so I was kind of in the same boat. And so I realize now that I look back, and it saddens me. And that's one reason I'm glad we're talking about this stuff. If there's a man or woman listening or watching this podcast, and you've always wanted to do something, go for it. But go for it with everything in you and have the confidence that you can be great in it. Because the reason I say that, I started realizing that a lot of my friends and even my family, they are just living this slow, conservative, safe route to death. And that's pretty bold of me to say that. But they're not taking any chances. And I have learned that you do fail a lot, but if you keep getting back up and swinging, you succeed. And so with this in America, there's so many ways. I mean, there's got to be a Jay-Z. There's got to be a Beyonce. Yeah. There's got to be a Tom Rowland. There's got to be a Michael Jordan. There's got to be a Chuck Adams. There's got to be a Dale Earnhardt. Who in some of these areas that we have a chance to play in could think that they would be a livelihood. I'm not saying that's easy, but it's not wrong for Americans or anybody or human being to go after being into this 10% or 20%. And I think what happens is most of the people who love us the most, I catch myself as a parent now doing it. We try to push into this safe zone of this 80, 90% of making a livelihood, working at a high rise or being in the agency rather than to push to own the agency. And so in a deep way, I think that's the problem with America. Now we get into the point where people don't even want to work. They just want to sit at home and just get something given to them. And so I think the American dream's still alive, but it's only alive if you dream and you have the balls. I know that I guess I can say it on this podcast, to just go get after it, to go get after it. And if you fail, you can still jump back into that 80 percentile.
Well, you can still. You can, but you're crazy to think that you're going to do anything, whether you're living the most conservative, slow walk to death, like you said. I mean, said it a little differently, but whether you're doing that or whether you're trying to be the next big country music star or the next Michael Waddell, whatever it is, you're going to fail. You're going to fail conservatively or you're going to fail swinging for the fence. It's how you how you react to that failure, and whether you learn from those mistakes and move on, or whether you fail and go, man, well, that wasn't for me anyway, and go back. Like, that's the difference. And like, we talk about these things on this podcast all the time because I'm so fascinated with these moments in people's career, whether that's like I said, Bill Dance or Roland Martin or Jimmy Houston. All of them have had this to where they get to this point in their career, and I know I did, to where it's like, do I really go for it here, or do I just kind of not, and it's like, it would be easy to not do it. And I mean, it would be easy to do it, but it would be easier not to do it. And then you have this burn the boat moment to where you just jump and you just say, man, I'm going to do this. And if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be the best at it that I can possibly be. And if I fail, I'm going to have no regrets. And I think that living that way is powerful. And I can tell that you've done that in your career. And that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you, because you've obviously done that. And I was trying to get to that moment of like you said, you have a fear of failure, but there's also such thing as a fear of success where all your friends are like, oh, Hollywood, look who's here, and man, that kills people, man. That kills people. It sucks the motivation right out of them. And they're like, man, I thought I thought this big break, I thought I won this big tournament and that was going to be great, but all my friends are like, they don't want to be around me anymore. And coming to grips with that, coming to grips with that and moving forward and past that, that's hard. That really is, man. Brother, it's hard.
You speak in my story now, because that
sounds like we got really similar story, man. Really,
it's similar. And
I just wish I had made it as big as Michael Waddell.
No, man, you have. That's like, I can't wait to talk about some of the things. I mean, even the waypoint. I mean, my God, I'm so proud of what y'all are doing and where this thing can go. I mean, I know we still got to talk about that, but as you're saying, did you find this, Tom? And it's ironic. You're talking about people that I admire, like the Bill Dance, the Roland Martins. And I mean, you don't even realize that all those guys, and I talk about people in the hunting industry, and I become friends with a lot of people, without having a name drop, but like the Blake Sheltons and like the, Red Akins and all these guys, man, we've been friends a long time. And I can't tell you, they've all been in a place in their career where it was kind of over, or call it depression. That's kind of a big kind of maybe not fair to say that, but you get into a place to where I'm going for it. I'm either going to sink or I'm going to swim. And it seems like, Tom, is that where it seemed like always something turned for you?
It seems like it. I mean, it doesn't happen right away. It's not like you say, I'm going for it, and then tomorrow you're like, I sure am glad I did. No, it's like a couple of years from there. You always hear the expression, he's an overnight success, 20 years in the making. And that's how it happens. It's like all of a sudden people are like, where'd this guy come from, man? Wow. And then you dig into it a little bit and it's like, oh, well, he's been doing this for 30 years. Like, whether it's the big country star or the rock and roll star or the whatever, a lot of them, like, they've been doing this for a long time. They've been like, there's a book I like called Chop Wood, Carry Water. And that's what it's about. It's like every day you chop wood, you carry water, you do the basics and you keep going. No matter what, you keep going and keep trying and keep going. And sooner or later, things are going to start happening. But it does seem like you can get to a point to where you decide, I think that's too risky, or I'm just, that's just not for me. And it is that moment that is either it's going to take you where you want to go or not. Your choice. Yeah. And sometimes it's a good choice to go back the other way for some people. But
I agree.
Not if not if you got a burning desire in your heart to make it as a professional hunter like you or a professional fisherman like me. It's like you got to go.
And it's not easy. And like I said, sometimes sometimes you definitely, I'm always talking sports analogies because I understand sports and always grew up playing it. And obviously sports give you a certain mental and physical toughness that help you kind of make some of this stuff easy when it comes to business and figuring out how to make decisions. But, sometimes you swing for a single, that, man, if I can get enough singles, like you said, the chop wood, carry water. And then there's times to where, like, look, it's time. I'm waiting for the fastball down the middle, and hell with it. I'm going to freaking hit it up into the upper deck. And it's funny because even looking back on my career, there was two pivotal times that I remember, Tom, and I never really even said this. I was completely ready to be done with it all. And from a public standpoint, people might have thought that, man, Waddell's rocking, man. He's at the top of his game. But one was coming off Realtree road trips, coming off a full-time employment at Realtree and trying to sort this out and kind of somewhat figure out my path. And Realtree didn't know what to do and didn't know how to really reward me. And they didn't know how to let me take advantage of some of these opportunities. So I was in a process of kind of having to leave. But I remember being so depressed and kind of disgusted. I was going through a really tough time. I wasn't seeing my kids. I was killing everything. I was not making any money. I was not making good money because I was just working as a full-time guy, but I was working every weekend at every Bass Pro Shops, every Cabela's, every Gander Mountain, every store out there. I was going for promotions for, Outdoor Channel. I was going promotions, for all these companies. And really at the end of it, all I had was some, new boots and a new bow and no money. And my marriage had failed, and my kids are like, and your name is Daddy. And I remember thinking, bullshit, I'm done. I'm over this. I'm either going to figure out a way to handle some of these situations. And at that time, I would say selfishly, I was thinking, I'm either going to make some money at this or I'm going back and going to work in construction with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm going for it. I'm going to go big hard. And if it don't make it, then I'm completely fine. And I can say that my life's been good. And then soon after I did that, quickly, man, we found great success, both financially and being independent. And then, I went through some tough business times, but then soon after that, I go through a very bad divorce. And I remember once again, I was in a place in my life, personally, I was thinking, nope, I'm going to make these changes in my life, and it's going to take me into where I need to be. And if it don't, and I have to leave this behind, I will. And holy cow, it turned into something great. And so with that, I've just learned that is part of being a man or a woman. And you just learned that you can let the fear of failure drive you, but you also can learn to live with failure, knowing that you at least did try. And I think the biggest nightmare I would have, if I look back, my biggest regret would be I didn't change anything and I didn't go for anything. That would be more depressing than to fail, than to not have at least tried to get up to the plate, for sure.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Like that fear. There's a fear for me of living with regret these days. And as I get a little bit older too, I realize I see it with people. They're like, man, I could have done something like that. And you think, man, that would be a rough way to wake up every morning, like knowing that you could have, but you didn't. And then living for the rest of your life, like just saying that all the time, like, I could have done that. Like in Napoleon Dynamite, like, man, if the coach had put me in there, I'd have thrown that football over that mountain, We'd have won the state for sure, like that guy, he's living with that all the time. And that's the advice that I give to people too, because for whatever reason, I guess I'm sure a lot of people ask you the advice too. Like, how did you do this? What would you tell me to do? And it's like, man, just go for it. Go for it. And
just go for it.
Especially if you're young, man. If you're young, what's the worst that's going to happen? You decide it's not for me, or you decide, well, I thought it was going to be a little bit better, or whatever. But I do know people that came to the Florida Keys and they tried guiding for a while, and they might have guided for 4 or 5 years, and then they leave.
Yeah.
And they're fine with it. They're leaving on their own terms. They decided that, you know what, this was great. I went for it. I competed with what I see are the best fishing guides on the planet, and I was one of them. And I did this.
Yep.
And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to work with my dad, and I'm going to be happy with it. Or I'm going to go back and I'm going to do this, or I'm going to go set up my business over here, because I don't want to be that guy that's, 60 and having a hard time right now because they didn't save any money and they just are guiding on the day to day. And I'm sure you see that in the hunting industry too. It's like, there needs to be kind of a plan here of what happens when your body starts to fail you, because like you say, it's like being a professional athlete, very much so. I mean, you are active and moving, and if you can't move, it's going to be tough. I mean, not impossible. I know a great fishing guide that's in a wheelchair. He's a great fishing guide, man. He does a great, and he doesn't move very well, but he's figured out a way to do it. So I don't know. It just seems like living with regret. That's the fear that I have the most of, I think, is just knowing that it was there for you, but you just didn't do it, man. You just, and I'm the same way.
And I see that. And I think even when I have a chance to go to these hunting shows and, these fishing and hunting expos, I just about man hug every dude that comes by and every woman, because I get a lot of the stories and I meet people that Tom, you understand, some of these guys are amazing, insane, uncanny ability to maybe catch fish, or they got something dialed in. Maybe it's over on Lake Eufaula they live close to, or maybe it's the turkeys in this public ground in Alabama, and they just are freaking, unbelievable. But I can talk to them just in 5 or 10 minutes, and you can feel this regret. And there's this fine line between me that they love and hate. Like they love that I'm kind of them and I'm doing this, but then like, I bet you making a bunch of money, man. What's so-and-so paying you? How many bows you get? And you can tell that they hate that part of it, but they admire that part of it. But what they're really saying is they're kind of aggravated because what they love me about is they really see us as equals. They don't see me as ahead of them, or I'm a better hunter or fisherman. They see as like, damn it, Waddell, you did it. I'm still over here trying to figure out how to scrap up a living at this wood mill. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. Nothing. Right. But you can feel this regret. And so for me, man, I hug them dudes like freaking my youngins. Like, hey, bro, it ain't too late. Right. You're still the best in your area. You represent, and I don't know how many bone collector hats I've given away. Like you part of my family, and because there is no difference between me and you. The only difference is, here it is, you're now 57 years old and you didn't go for it because you were, but we're taught not to go for it.
Yes.
I mean, we are. And so it's not their fault, or it's not. And luckily, like your parents, maybe they encourage you. I don't know that part of your story. Do they encourage or discourage? But, my dad was pretty encouraging. But you know what was encouraging about my dad? My dad didn't care truly. He was going to be proud of me. But what he made sure I knew, that when I got out of high school, if you ain't going to go to school, but you ain't staying here.
Right.
And if you stay here, holy cow, I don't know that I'd have ever had worked any harder building a railroad than staying if I'd have lived with my dad after high school, because I can tell you right now, I would have weed eated. I would have went to work with him. I don't even know if it'd have paid me, because I'd have had to pay for rent.
Right.
But he was hard. And he was like, I don't give a damn what you do, but you're going to work. You're getting out of here. I've raised you for 18 years and you eat a lot of biscuits, boy. and you eat a lot of groceries. I'm ready for you to be out of here and come back to my house.
Yeah.
You know what? And when you get 21, you bring over 3 or 4 beers for me and you, and you bring your own steak. Right. I mean, that was, so inevitably I knew that I was going to have to do something. It didn't have, I could have been $10, $15, $20,000 a year living in a trailer, and my dad would have been just as proud and happy.
Sure.
But so I think that, in a weird way, that was the encouragement my dad gave me. He's like, I don't care what you do, but get out. Hey, this ain't. Hey,
Yeah. Well, my dad gave me.
You don't deserve nothing.
He gave me some similar advice, but his advice was more like, I'd never met a fishing guide. I don't know that that's a way that you can make a living, but obviously you have figured out, you've met some people, and that's a way to do it. So if you're going to do this, you're going to need to be really good at it. Like, you give it everything you got. But and he was always very supportive. To his credit, he was a little bit kind of wary of the whole thing. Like, I don't know, man. It seems too good to be true. Like, you're just out there fishing. And I'm like, Dad, come out here and see what I do. And so he'd go out there, and we'd get up real early in the morning, and I'd get that boat ready, and we'd go all day floating down the stream. And he would be like, now, okay, I see what you're doing. Like, this is pretty nice. And then he'd send his friends out there, and his friends would pay me like as a guide. And they come back and you won't believe what he's doing out there. It's just so awesome. It's the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. And we had the best time. And you know what? He's really good at that. Like, what he's doing, he's really good at it. So, I mean, you hear that a few times, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're old enough to make your own decisions. But for me, like, that's awesome. And I don't know if it was the same way for you. It sounds like you had some other opportunities, but I mean, I did go to a good school, but I was probably bottom of the class for sure. And I just couldn't imagine myself working. I don't know what I would be doing if I hadn't have found fishing. I really don't, because nothing was intriguing to me. Nothing was exciting to me. So a lot of people are like, man, you made it or whatever. It's like, well, I didn't really have a choice, because I wasn't going to be working in an office. So it was like either fishing or like some sort of manual labor, which is fine. I mean, I would have been fine with
too.
it. My dad kept doing, that's what he would say when I was a kid. He's like, listen, if you don't make a B on that test, you're going to be digging ditches. And I was like, man, I think I might like digging ditches. I kind of like it. I mean, I'm good with a shovel and I would probably be a really good employee. I don't really see what's wrong with digging ditches. And it's better than sitting in that classroom. That's what I was thinking. But anyway, my dad was very, very, very supportive. It was funny. So
We got to be brothers. We got to be brothers.
It seems like it. I mean, it really does. It seems like it. We certainly need to go fishing or hunting together,
I'd love
for
it.
sure. So I have some questions for you as we kind of draw to a close, because I know you're a busy guy. You don't take too much. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do want to compliment you on one thing. I listened to your podcast, a couple of them. And dude, you're really good with the podcast. And the reason I say that is because you're obviously a good conversationalist, and that probably comes from being at all these sports shows and being a hunting guide, and just you just carry on a good conversation. You have a light humor, and you're just a fun guy to be around. But you bring that out on the podcast, and your podcast with the Undertaker was really good, because he's, like, you can't be from Chattanooga and not know who the Undertaker is either. Like,
right.
You can't say, you can't be from Booger Bottom and not know who the Undertaker is. So we had Georgia Championship Wrestling here and there was a place, the Memorial Auditorium, and every wrestler you've ever heard of came through the Memorial Auditorium. Now, I did not necessarily go to the Memorial Auditorium and sit ringside, but that was on every Saturday morning. And I watched professional wrestling, and you'd see everybody come through there. And the Undertaker was always an interesting guy. And now he's retired, and he's been going on a lot of these other podcasts. And so when I see him, I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I'll listen to that. And I listen to him on Joe Rogan, and I listen to him somewhere else too. And I'm interested in these stories, because I think being a rodeo cowboy, a professional wrestler, and maybe a professional bass fisherman, those got to be like three of the toughest ways to make a living that there are.
Oh.
I mean, you're just getting the crap beat out of you in all three of those sports. You say what you want about professional wrestling. It might be fake. You've sat next to the Undertaker. You want that guy jumping off the top rope and pretending like he's going to land on you, and maybe he misses a little bit. Like, now your shoulder's jacked up for 3 months, right? Like, I mean, that wouldn't
a quarter of him land on you is like most full-grown men.
Yeah. And now you got to drive to another place, and you got to do it again. Drive to another place and do it again. He's saying 270 days on the road. Anyway, you got some stories out of him that he hasn't told on the other podcasts. And you had this real natural way of communicating with him. And I could tell that you didn't really know him, but you were able to break through and get into this way of, I mean, it sounded like you guys were old buddies, but you could also tell that you weren't. Like, but I just wanted to compliment you on that, because you should stick with the podcast, man. You're good at it. You're really good at it. And you're going to have the opportunity to get some really great guests, and I think it's going to be a big thing for you. I really do. Do you like doing it?
I appreciate I do enjoy doing it, because, like I said, my wife tells me I probably talk too much. I get excited, and I feel like I talk more now than I ever did. I think a lot of it I attribute to being older, and then too, you have all these kind of pent up philosophical life lessons, and so I certainly don't feel like I know it all, but I've been around a lot of people, and so with that, I think it's a good timing, because from different walks of life, you've run into a lot of different people, and you got a heck of a Rolodex of people that fit into the narrative of, man, these people need to have their story told, or they need to tell their stories of life lessons, or their adventures of mischievous, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you're right exactly about the Undertaker. I was so pleased that he would come on the show, because I was a huge fan of him, but I'm kind of like you. I was just more, I didn't know him, but I knew him as the Undertaker, but I knew nothing about him. Like I had to find out his name was, Calloway, Mark Calloway. Yeah. I just knew the Undertaker and this kind of larger than life, strange wrestling personality that I remember, wrestling and watching him and was intrigued by it. But again, then I wasn't one of those guys who watched every time it came on, but I always liked what he did. And so anyway, you're right. Where most people, if you're a huge fan of the Undertaker, you know every little story of it. And well,
I don't know because he was so shadowy and careful. And even on Rogan, he was talking about how he would go out dressed as the Undertaker. Like he would go to dinner like dressed as the Undertaker, because he didn't want anybody he didn't want to mess up his character. Like, I saw the Undertaker, but he was like wearing a suit. Like, no, that would have been horrible. Yeah. So he, like, for a lot of his career, like what he was talking about on that was he he just didn't go out, or if he did, he had to go out in character.
I've often thought that would be harder than what even you and I do, because in reality, once even the podcast that I did with him, you can certainly tell that he is really a smart, down to earth guy.
Oh, yeah.
Almost completely out of character for what I thought. Like I was listening to that firsthand, and I purposely didn't do a ton of research because I wanted to get to know him as he was talking to me, and I was kind of blown away. I'm like, man, this dude is deep. He's a solid man. Like I was shocked. He was a Christian. I didn't know that about. I mean, he kind of had this witchcraft about him on the ring, and so it's funny. Me and you can or take a Willie Robertson with Duck Dynasty or Phil Robertson. They can, when they walk out, kind of what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
I never have to go into this character. He lived a life as a character. Now he's just now kind of escaping that character. He will always be the Undertaker, but he's now confident that it ain't about just the marketing,
right?
And so like even me, the man from Booger Bottom. Well, I really am. It is a part of the marketing. It is a part of this.
But you don't have to go into character. Like you don't have to go into character. Somebody would say, "Man, I met Waddell, and he was just like he is on TV."
Yeah,
like that's
it's funny you said I had to go to a wedding this past Saturday. Tyler Jordan got married, and man, my wife she put me in my nicest suit, and bro, I had to look online and get me the little pocket handkerchief and how to fold it. And bro, I went in there and I had the best time, and I had a few people at the wedding come up like, "What hell, man? You dressed up nice." Like, so are you, man? And like, but I was still the redneck in the suit trying to figure out, could you keep going back and get Michelob Ultra at the bar, And so it was fun, and I laughed, and so I kind of enjoyed putting on the suit. All these rednecks. I don't want to put on. I kind of enjoyed, like, man, my wife's like, "My God, you're handsome." I'm like, "Thank you, baby."
I tell you, one of the funniest things I've ever seen was going to the when Bass Pro Shops opened the World of Wildlife Museum, and they had everybody there, every celebrity, every hunting, fishing celebrity you ever heard of, and everybody's dressed up, and they all chose to dress a little differently. You had the one guys that pulled out their suit that they hadn't worn in 20 years, and it's up to here, and it won't button. And then you had other guys that they went all out, man. Jim Shockey shows up, and he's got this Western whole get up going, and he looks sharp, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, and then it was just funny, like just to see everybody. I saw Bill Dance without his Tennessee hat on for the first time ever, and he's wearing like a blue suit, and I was like, damn, Bill Dance looks like somebody's well-to-do grandfather right now. Like, it was just funny just to see everybody doing all these different things. But anyway, that is funny. All right, man. So one of the things I want to ask you, and just keep the answers just brief, was hunting and fishing better before social media or after?
I think it was better before, honestly.
Yeah, I thought that's what you were going to say.
I do, because I think now people hunt just for the social media rather than their own internal passion or pleasure of it. I see that a lot. So,
what's your favorite reel tree pattern ever created?
Probably my favorite is this. I guess it ain't new anymore. I like this real tree timber right now, man. I love this timber. It's kind of darker than your typical real tree pattern, but I really like it, and I think it looks cool, man. It's just a kind of sexy on the shelf too. I just think it looks cool. I like it.
Right on. In your opinion, how do we ensure the future of hunting and fishing?
I think the number one thing people would say, let's make sure we pass it down to the kids. And inevitably that is the ultimate, goal. But I think right now we're in a different time than we've ever been, but it could be taking a turn for the good. So overall, I'm not as excited with, let's just say where things have been headed lately. As a country. However, some of those same things are going to, I think, inevitably help people better understand hunting and fishing, not just as it applies to the sport, but to a livelihood, sustainability for body and soul, where there's the food and or the mental and emotional joy that it brings. But I think the biggest thing we can do is just represent it for exactly what it is. And I think that gets back to, as I talked earlier in the podcast about the insecurity, just have complete security that our outdoor hunting and fishing is a God-given right, not a privilege. It's a God-given right that's given to us, no different, very similar to a right to defend yourself. And so when you understand that if you're hungry and there's not a grocery store with chicken breast, it's okay to hunt a squirrel or a rabbit, regardless if you're an animal lover. It's all right to go and, all those people's got them bass fishing ponds. And I've done it the last 2 summers where it's like, hey, man, we're taking everything out of here from 13, 14 inches down. We trophy. Dude, I would rather fish those places. Man, I'm flaying out fish out the water. So I got more bass flays. Eating bass is still fun for me.
Oh, yeah.
And so you start realizing that hunting is more than just, a trophy room. And I think I would end with that because I think this question deserves a little longer answer. I think I would say hunt from a passion and hunt from the standpoint of what can you show about hunting, the same joy that if you really passionately love it, what is it that you want to share with others about it that you love? And when it comes to trophy hunting, I think there's nothing wrong with that, but we have to be careful in our venture to build these trophy rooms, because at the end, if we step all over everybody and we, ruin relationships, friendships, marriages, or whatever, over just a dead deer on the wall that might score high, or the same with, trying to catch the world record marlin, all of a sudden you're going to be that jerk, with a nice cigar and a glass of scotch in a lonely, dusty trophy room with no friends. And you really didn't do anything for hunting and fishing. So for me, remember that the true trophy is really the adventures and the stories and the laughing and some stupid joke you and I are going to play on each other, or just the fun, the laughter. Maybe it's meeting your wife, your kids, vice versa you, or maybe it's some cornbread we ate at camp that we're like, holy cow, it's the best freaking cornbread. And you forget that you killed a big deer,
right,
or killed a longest spur turkey, or caught a big fish. I think that's what the biggest thing the hunting industry misses. And I think we need to keep celebrating that, because that's more important than the trophy. But inevitably, the trophy that the outdoor space provides is a sense of providing for us, and not only spiritual, but true subsistence. If we get to the point where you can't go buy a ribeye or pork chop or chicken breast at the store, if you got access to, we do it public ground or private ground, we can survive. And hunting takes on a different toll, not just for those people like you and I who made a living at it, but also somebody in New York City who realizes, like, wait a minute, this field to table is pretty smart process.
Mm-hmm.
This lifestyle, or this life that these people are living, that I used to call them redneck hillbilly hicks, they're pretty smart. They're pretty smart. And that looks pretty peaceful and pretty independent from what I have lived. And you'll realize that the people that don't understand hunting and fishing, sometimes they're very dependent on somebody else to do their killing for them.
Right. Almost entirely, in fact. Okay. So last question. What are you the most grateful for?
I think I'm most grateful right now for my family. A good Lord has forgiven me over all the dumb things I've done. Lord, I've been I've been to church, but I've also did plenty of hell raising, and I'm still a sinner. And to look at the road, all the roads I've been down, and have a great wife that stands behind me, healthy kids. Now I'm most grateful for the very simple things. I wouldn't even say the chance that I'm going to get to go elk hunting again. I'm thankful for that, but I'm truly, humbly grateful that as I sit here and speak to you, Mark, that I got my health, that I can still get up and I can go 2 or 3 miles or 7 miles in the elk country. I can still get out there and play one-on-one basketball with my kids, and they getting where they whoop me, because my youngins are 14 to 21, 1 to 4. I school him all the time, but I'm thankful that I got my health, that I got people that I know I've identified that truly love me, and they have unconditional love for me, and I got unconditional love for them, so I'm most grateful for the very, very elementary, simple things more than I am any of the other things, whether it's money or anything like that. I'm very confident and have peace that no matter what could happen right now, I think with the foundation of those people I got around me, my father, my wife, some close friends and relatives, that that I'm in a place, no matter what happens, that I could find a certain peace, whether it's in a huge house or a single wide or a camper trailer, or whether it's eating bluegill or eating filet mignon at my favorite restaurant. So I think I'm grateful for that mindset more than I am anything in those elementary things of having, I don't know. It's just, it's a certain nirvana for me. I literally, it sounds crazy, but my wife and I just built a house, and just the other night, I walk out, turkey season's over, and I didn't even told her this story, but I walk out on my porch, and I went to Cracker Barrel, bought me a couple of them rocking chairs, right? And so I walk out there, and I had me pour me just a little bit of some Irish whiskey. I'd been watching that Peaky Blinders, so I poured me a little Irish whiskey over the rocks, and I sat up in that rocking chair, and the sun set, and the sun went down, and I'm looking at my farm, and I got some pecan trees out here, and old whippoorwill is fired up. Just 2 or 3 whippoorwills are singing, and I can hear my youngins. I can hear my youngins running around in the house. My wife is cooking. She's making some country fried steak and with some brown gravy and mashed potatoes and macaroni and cheese. And I ain't lying, Mark, man, I got emotional, and I almost started crying. I was like, man, thank you. Look, this is heaven. Yeah. I mean, this is heaven. And a lot of people probably recognize that feeling, but it was just, I don't know. And it was just last night. And so I was like, man, I don't know. That is the thing, that all the trophies, all the adventures, I wouldn't trade anything for those moments. Now, without those adventures and out certain paychecks, I wouldn't have a new house, and I wouldn't even have a rocking chair from Cracker Barrel. So I don't know. I think I'm thankful. I'm just ultimately grateful, humble. And I feel like I'm in a good spot as a man. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great answer, man. Can't do any better. Well, I want to thank you really for coming on, and you've had a remarkable career that is really probably just getting started, man. You probably got so many. We'll do another podcast to find out what's coming next for you, but I'm sure that you're not going to sit still. You haven't sat still since you started, so I don't think it's happening.
Well, thank you. And one thing I want to say before the podcast ends is definitely, man, definitely want to give you a huge high five, hug, whatever it is, for what you guys are doing at Waypoint. Holy cow. Like you said, you talk about getting those places in your life to where you just go try something, and congratulations on all your success and your partner. Y'all definitely paving a heck of a way out there. It's definitely caught my attention. I definitely enjoy a lot of what the network has to offer, but whether it's in this podcast or on the shows, that when you can tune in, that, it's funny, all my TVs they're Samsung TVs. And so I'm like, what, look at this. I'm freaking out, like excited. So congratulations, all y'all doing. I'm looking forward to doing some more stuff for you guys. And
let's
maybe
do it, man.
Do some fun stuff. So
let's do it. We
no
can,
doubt. Congratulations.
On that front, it's literally, it's the wild, wild west. You can do anything you want. Yeah. I mean, it really is. Fun. It's an amazing time right now. An amazing time for a creator, because you can create anything. I mean, you got an idea for a series that's never existed before because it wouldn't work on television. It'd probably work on there, it probably would. But listen, it's been awesome to get to know you a little bit better. I can't wait to see you in person, and maybe we go to dinner or something, or better yet, go hunting or fishing. I'd love to put you on your first tarpon. I wouldn't want to destroy your life, but I would love to put you on your first tarpon, first bonefish.
Man, I would love that. And I've never caught a tarpon. I've never have, and I've always wanted. I've even went and fed them. I've been down to Key West a couple times, and actually, I don't know if you know Captain George Clark. He took me out fishing, and we had a great time. Caught some mahi and some, just kind of a day trip. Man, it was fun, and man, the whole time I'm looking at them fillets. I'm bringing them back. I'm bringing them back home to Georgia, But
we need to bring your family down there. We got a great little setup with Hawks K, and we'll do a little fishing and visiting, and that'd be a great time, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll do it. You'll love my kids. You'll get the deckhands to love my kids, because I got 4 boys. I'll have 2 of them doing nothing but help fillet. We'll do the catching. We'll just rotate.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Well, Michael, I appreciate it. I know you got stuff to do this afternoon, but thank you again for coming on. And
thanks for having me on, buddy.
We'll see you soon.